watching a few key names. Apple, this stock gained big time in 2023. Tesla rolled out the Cybertruck. Lots to discuss here. So both of these stocks on the move. Dan Ives has been a fan of these names, Managing Director, Equity Research, Wedbush Securities. Thank you so much for being with us. So what did you think of Apple's year that was? And how is it? I mean, 3 trillion's cool. You're looking at 4 trillion maybe. Tell us a little bit about the Apple story and where you think it's headed. So many people hold this name.
Yeah, look, I think Nicole, I think it was a year of resilience. I mean, if you think about the China issues in terms of the shadow ban, some of the supply chain, Huawei, mature smartphone market, they came really smelling like roses. I mean, if you look at the actual numbers from iPhone now that we're seeing units grow, services rebounds significantly. And I think that's key to the valuation. That's key to the re-rating in Apple, which is why we think at the end of 2024, there's a $4 trillion market cap.
So what number are we looking at on that stock? When you say 4 trillion, what does that mean in per share?
Yeah, 250, I think is the best way to sort of view base case. Bull case could clearly be 260, 270. But this is all about a renaissance of growth that's happened in iPhone units, China holding in strong, services ramping, and then I think it's the drum roll where they're going to monetize AI. I think that's not factored into the stock, and I think this is a name that I think investors continue to underestimate that golden install base of Cupertino.
And I think saying monetize AI is a great conversation because we talked about AI growth all year long and what it can do. But what we didn't talk about was the revenue growth, how to monetize AI to the best umpteenth degree. And you think they can do exactly that. Are you worried about the competitive landscape? Or the last phone out was the iPhone 15. Do you expect some new things in 2024 for this name?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there will be some model issues and model changes. I think you've even seen some changes from a product perspective at Apple, which I view as a positive. But look, they have the best and biggest install base in the world. That's what they're going to tap into. I mean, that's a key part of what's happened with services. I mean, services is $100 billion end in terms of that business. AI, that's going to be the next step to further monetizing just an unparalleled install base.
Understood. And just finally for Apple, do you think about any hurdles that they could face that would give you the bear case scenario?
Look, I think the biggest hurdle, and it's always the big bad wolf, right? It's always the shadow what you worry about is China. In terms of, U.S.-China Cold Tech War, what does that mean? I still think for now bark's worse than the bite. I'm not saying that it's champagne and strawberries for them in Beijing, but we're seeing growth out of China, and I do think that's starting to, maybe soften a bit in terms of some of that tension, and that's a positive. I mean, they'll diversify a bit into India and some other areas, but it's still Rock of Gibraltar, and it's obviously it's a name me and you have talked about for many years.
When you talk about champagne and strawberries, that's what you were saying for Elon Musk during the UAW strike, and that the tough time that we were seeing for the big three could have been a great beneficiary for Tesla, benefit for Tesla in that. And we did see cutting back on EV production from Ford, for example, said they were cutting the F-150 Lightning production in half. That probably benefited Tesla, no doubt. We had the Cybertruck launch for Tesla. This is one that you've always been a fan of. Where do you think this is headed, and what did you think of 2023?
I think they made the right poker move, cut price for units, and that paid off, I think, massively, especially the first half of the year. Now, of course, then you got to the invisible line. Like, you can't continue to cut prices, worry about margins. That's been a bit of an overhang in the stock, we'll say, of late. But units going to be close to 2.1 million. And like you talked about, Nicole, they're doubling down on EVs. others are starting to pull back. I think there's just a huge opportunity for them. You could Cybertruck, you could, I believe, is going to be a sub 30K vehicle just to further flex those
Yeah.
muscles, on its path to $1 trillion market cap.
And that's amazing if they really can get that out. I know there's a slew of orders. I saw about 2 million orders, pre-orders for the Cybertruck. If 40% of those come through, 45% from what I understand, that's probably the norm. We'll see if that actually happens. And how about BYD? Throughout the back half of the year, it was the question of which produced more, BYD, Tesla? Is BYD, because Tesla may be in an intermediate growth after the big growth that it saw, is BYD in a faster growth trajectory for 2024?
BYD is a formidable competitor. I mean, if you said who their true competitor is, it's not Neo, Xpeng, even, in terms of what we're seeing out of Detroit, it's really BYD. I mean, they've gone full scale, but I don't view it as a zero-sum game. I mean, we're still talking first, second inning of electric vehicles. And even though you're seeing maybe demand come off modestly, even if you
Yeah.
chop that by 20%, this is just starting the biggest transformation to the auto industry since 1950s.
Yeah. As you talked about the big three, it brought me back to the year of the unions and the demands that they put in place. And Tesla talk about higher pay. I mean, he's just trying to, counter any sort of union interest by the employees. That could be, say, a wild card for 2024. I know he's been trying to raise the pay, though, right?
Look, I mean, they're obviously doing that just given the union issues, what we've seen with Sean Penn, UAW, what's happened in Scandinavia as well. But it just comes down to like better chance of me playing in the NFL playoffs than ultimately, unions having success at Tesla.
And last but not least, not long ago, we had a conversation about tech overall and your outlook, and that this was the time for tech. And you had some great phrases, and I would love to hear them as we're ending 2023 for people who may be interested in tech for 2024. What do you tell them?
And the bull market started. I mean, we see tech up 25% in 2024. I think it'll be broader. Magnificent Seven will lead it, but broad in terms of mid cap. This is the big, we call it 1995 movement. It's the biggest tech transformation since the start of the internet in 1995. And that's why the bears, they're sleeping deep in those caves in hibernation mode. I think they come out, bull markets here in 24.
Amazing, amazing. And the bears are sleeping deep in the cave. They won't even see
Deep in the
tech. It'll be
cave.
moving so hot and fast. Okay. Okay. Well, I think a lot of people will like that for their 401ks and IRAs. Dan Ives, great to see you. We'll see you
Happy
in the
holidays.
new
Thank you.
year. You too, Wedbush Securities, Dan Ives.